Welcome, curious crafters, to the 1 hour Saturday Spotlight. Today, we'll be highlighting Ditma Knittery. Any questions seen within the chat will be asked at the end of the main 1 hour interview. If you can't wait that long, put it in the chat and we'll get it answered for you and sent through comments. Now, Beverly, please try and ignore any chat seen as best you can and give me a good old thumbs up when you're ready for me to get you up and start the countdown. Gosh, she's waving those thumbs around like Lordio. Okay. Welcome in, Miss Ditma.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for your patience.
It's not a problem. Are you ready to begin?
I think so. Thank you.
The countdown is on. Beverly, I see that you've only recently come to YouTube as of October this year. So, can you tell us, what did you fear about making your very first video?
I thought no one would watch it at all. I thought it wouldn't be seen, and I was over my nervousness about making it because I was pretty confident nobody was going to look at it.
That's a good fear to have for your first video. What did you enjoy about getting that first video up?
It was really fun preparing, gathering the things that I was going to show that day and thinking about what I was going to say and making notes. I love making notes. I love my notebooks and my pencils. And I usually don't follow the plan, but something about making the plan is part of my process. So I usually do that. Is it okay if I tilt a little bit?
Well, no, not really. But, you go ahead and tilt if you like.
Sorry.
It's okay. So did it go to plan then? You said the enjoyment of it was, you don't usually do plans or anything, but, I'm guessing that the video was planned and you executed it well?
I did execute that first one pretty well. And the reason I say they don't usually go to plan is that the subsequent ones have not gone so much according to plan as that first one did.
My dear, you're human. Welcome to the race.
Yes, that's it. You plan and plan. And like I said, for me, that's part of it, whether or not I follow the plan. And I found out if I'm too strict about the plan, like if I make my notes very specific and try to follow them exactly, that I don't have as much fun. And then the podcast isn't as good.
Mm-hmm. Very much understood. Very much. I have a plan in my head. Don't dare put it down on paper because I know it's just going to be ripped up. So I'm with you. So what actually inspired you to actually start an active YouTube channel?
Well, I think it was an idea that had been rising in my subconscious for a while, rising in my idea bank for a while, because it seems to be where it's happening, where my fiber artists can be found. And that was so fun to begin to find these channels where people were crocheting and knitting and talking about fiber art and talking about themselves and their lives. And then I think I've mentioned Kim, the Crafty Nomad, and Priscilla, Distinctive Crochet. And there were several others too that came right out and said, Bev, go ahead and start that podcast.
Encouragement from others.
And even those that didn't know me or mention me by name, there were several that just made it seem doable, where before it seemed like that the YouTube community was kind of exclusive. Mm-hmm. And not in a negative way, but it seemed like that there were podcasters and there were viewers, and those were two different groups. And the podcasters kind of talked among themselves and the viewers watched. And I feel like the community that we have now, the fiber community that we have now, is much more engaging, that podcasters and viewers alike feel more connected. And, you know, if that's not happening, I'm convinced it is, and I'm happy about it.
Lovely. We're happy that you're happy. Look at the smile, Anna. Look at the smile.
So goofy grin. I'm sorry. It just happened.
That's fine. You be as goofy as you like. This is your time, Beverly. This is your time. So you've touched on it. Can you describe what your channel is about to those people that have no clue who you are, never heard of your channel? What is your channel about?
I started my channel by first talking about what I do most, the work I do most, which is knitted felted bags, which is what you see behind me right here. And I will, if you want to see some more up close, I have some sitting here beside me that I can show you more close. But I thought we'd probably get into the process, and that's when I'll show them. So that's what I started talking about, because over the last few years, since I started designing the knitted felted bags, I've spent a lot of time doing that because people buy them. They don't buy a lot of them. They're starting to buy more. Mm-hmm. But that's why I was moved to do it. And if you've ever had that feeling, and I'm sure you have, of just wanting to do something and doing it, that's what happened. I wanted to do it. I did it. It turned out better than I hoped. So I did it some more.
Good girl. Good girl. I'd give you a little pat on the back, but, you know, social distancing, of course.
Well, so I've been designing since 2013. I've been designing knitted felted bags. I was designing other things before that, but I've been designing all of these bags are my design.
It's even better. When you've got an imagination, you've got to use it. It's got to come out somehow. So I'm taking a guess. I mean, let's be honest, I know. But for those that don't, what was that very first video all about?
Wow, I didn't know there would be a quiz.
She's like, I have no clue. Oh, it could have been anything.
That was like 3 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure that I showed some works in progress that were crocheted market bags, because I've been working on those. And I think I also showed some knitted felted bags. And I probably talked a little bit about myself. I live in Georgia. I have a dog and a cat. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that, but wow, that was.
See, it's taken her back, and it was only a few weeks ago. She's like, oh, I remember when.
Yes. Well, and I kind of remember what I've said in my podcast, but I don't necessarily remember what I said and what I showed in which one, if that makes sense.
That's fair enough. I can go with that. That's fair enough.
Thank you.
So you've said that you used to make other things and now you're making the bags. Is it a case of the bags have become your new favorite thing to make, or is there something else that you favor making, but at the moment the thing that's on your radar is the bags?
It's definitely my favorite thing to make. And I do enjoy making other things very, very much. But I've been making, like, even before I started making these kinds of bags, I was making bags for a long time. And it just feels like I'm a bag maker. Like, you could ask me to make dinner and I might make a bag. So
mashed potato purses, here we go.
If you ask me to make a hat, you might get a bag. You might get a hat. It's possible, but you might get a.
Let's face it, you could always wear a bag on your head.
And I have made bags that people just said, this looks like a hat. And I'm like, well, if you buy it, you can wear it on your head.
You can do what you like with it.
So refreshment here.
You're gonna need it. You're gonna need it. I'm glad it's a nice tall glass as well. Yeah. You can have one for me every now and again if you like.
I have to keep drinking, or I don't.
Please do. I daren't, because otherwise people are going to hear me gulping down the microphone, and it's not a good sound. So do you sell your craft?
Yes. Yes,
That's
I've
too
had.
short an answer. Give me details, woman.
Oh, here they come. So the first show that I was in, the first art festival I was in 2014. The festival was called Mecca Fest. And it's a rather large, important arts fest. It's a juried arts festival that takes place once a year. The first weekend, second weekend in October. Didn't take place this year, but had to be 15 years before that. It just got bigger every year. And the first time I went there, probably in 2008 or 2009, I said, I'm going to make stuff and I'm going to be in this thing sometime. So in 2013, I began to design these bags. And in 2014, in July, I applied. In June, I applied to be in the arts festival, Mecca Fest, and I was accepted. The jury accepted my work. It's a very exciting day. I got a phone call at work that said, can you come down here and explain your work to us? We're looking at it right now. And my boss was a great boss. She said, get in your car and go. So I did. And they accepted my work. And I sold, I think I had 34 products, and I sold 24 products over those 2 days. So that was the beginning. And, when you have an experience, a really positive experience like that, you go home and make some more bags.
Walking on air with bags all over.
Yes, and people had ordered like just 2 or 3, but I had a couple of orders that I had to fulfill immediately after that, and then a couple more orders after that. So, and people bought a few things. So my inventory was down to like 6 bags, and I had to start over, which was thrilling, but it was then hard to prepare for the next festival.
Mm-hmm. But at least I'm guessing you had an expectation then, you knew what was going to happen, so it's easier to prepare.
Well, I'll keep this part short, but what happened is I moved and I didn't get to be in the festival again until 2017. Is that right? 2018. So I was in the festival 2018, and the same one that I talked about. Again, had 2 very successful experiences, and also had some sales mid-time. Like I worked at a college, and at Christmas time, they would allow us employees to set up a table and sell our goods. I did that 2 or 3 times. I sold a couple of things on Etsy. Friends would buy things. But these festivals, like I said, that was like my target when I started. Mm-hmm. So just getting in the one time was such a big thrill. And now I'm really starting to get a little bit of traction, I think. People are around town, and in the artist circle I work in are starting to know my name. And I'm very fortunate, even though I live in a small town, very fortunate to have a very active arts community right here in this small town. And once I got the courage to get involved with them, the Artist Guild here, they just took me under their wing and have contributed to my growing success in a great way by making these opportunities available to me, like the opportunity that I had this past weekend where I went and had a festival and sold things. That was because of the Artist Guild.
Oh, so that really gave you a good buzz. It got you going.
I'm sorry, Lady Bird, I interrupted you.
No, it's all right. We interrupted each other. It's fine. We cancelled each other out. It basically gave you the bag bug. You'd sold a few. You'd done your festival. You'd done your next festival, and it was like, okay, this is something that I can really do. I can knock these out. I can make a little bit of money from it. I'm making people happy.
Yes, yeah, it is. I love doing it. And especially when I feel inspired to do something, because I don't really know how that happens. It just does, and I appreciate it. I've never been artistic before. Well, I write, but I've never been, I've never experienced anything in this kind of medium. And I know there's a word for it, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. It's like, there you go. There's a bag idea right there. You can have a bag of words.
I've thought of that. I actually had a bag. I had a black bag, and it was a gray bag, and it had 3 black sheep on it, and it had the words "ba ba."
Oh.
And then on the other side, it said, "Have you any wool?"
Very good. Oh,
So
I
it had
like
3
that.
black sheep, and it said "ba ba," black sheep. Have you any wool?
I that would make a brilliant project bag for us yarny people.
Somebody purchased it, and I didn't even remember making it until this moment. And that's, I think, I don't even know how many of these bags I've sold. I used to say I've sold 30 bags. Well, that was years ago. And so how many have I sold? I don't know. I need to count. And I have old spreadsheets where I have old inventory lists. I could probably figure out something, but it's a thrill.
You're a walking wholesaler, Ditmar. So you kind of semi-mentioned earlier that you sold on Etsy before. Are you still selling on Etsy now?
I do have an Etsy shop. I haven't made a lot of sales there, but for me, it's a way that people can see my work anytime, anywhere. It doesn't cost me very much to maintain those photos on Etsy. And then people, like when I make a connection like this, you can go and see what's in my shop. And more than likely, everything I show you today it is already in the shop.
So in that case, Beans, your Etsy isn't advertised on your About page on YouTube. Would you be willing to pass over your Etsy shop link so we can put it in the description below for anybody that wants?
And I think there's an Etsy link in my description box in my videos. If there isn't, I need to rectify that. But I thought I had my Etsy link in my.
It might be in a couple of your descriptions, but I did have a nosy at your About Me page, and I was so hoping it'd be there, and it wasn't there.
You know what? I don't think I filled in my About Me page. I've just been adding things to the description box. That was my slip there, that I didn't have my About page up. But
okay, it's a little nudge to you to put it in your notebook and go, yeah, that's a plan for later.
Here's my notebook right here.
There you go. Look, she's prepared.
Yes, I'll do that. I'm pretty good at follow up.
Okay, so anybody that would like to have a nosy into Bev's Etsy shop, give us a few minutes, like half an hour to an hour after this goes live. Of course, if you're watching the replay of this, it should already be there, but I'll get her Etsy shop link down in the description below so you can go and have a look at some of this gorgeous work, which we will have a look at in a minute, but we'll get there. We will get there. Okay. So with your selling, how do you go about pricing your items up?
That is the most difficult thing. Absolutely the most difficult thing. When I first started out, people told me a lot that my prices were too low. But at that point, I was going to make the bags whether somebody bought them or not. So I priced them to sell. But as I have become a little bit more successful, my prices have gone up. And it's very hard, very hard. And I will share with you the thing I do. This is how I do it. I take the thing that I think is the least valuable in my collection, and I take the thing that I think is the most valuable in my collection, and I price those 2 items, and I try to fill in from there by comparing, value as to yarn quantity, my time, my artistic contribution, and here's another component, how much I like it.
Does that mean if you really, really like it, you're going to put it at an extortionate price?
I have.
I'm so on that wavelength.
And I have sold things at that level. Not often, but I have.
Has that just made your jaw drop and go, oh,
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's just, okay, you can have it if you're going to give me that kind of money for it. You can have it. I like it a lot.
I suppose the good thing with that is if you personally like that item a lot, make yourself another one and then you're still in profit.
I think one of the favorite things I've made, maybe the favorite thing that I've made along these lines, and it was an early project. I made a very large brown and tan project bag. I was trying to remember the yarn, and it will come to me in just a minute, and I'll say the yarn name. But anyway, I made this large bag out of wool, intending to felt it, and I embroidered on it in wool the words knit, comma, purl. And then on the other side, I embroidered some balls of yarn and some knitting needles, and I felted it, and it turned out fabulous. And I had it for many years on my rack for sale. And one day some lady walked in my shop and she said, well, wouldn't the girls in my knitting group think I was the stuff if I had this bag? And her husband bought it for her.
Wow.
And I made another one, and it sold on Etsy. So I have to make another one.
Third time lucky. You might actually get to keep one, Beverly.
So the other one I didn't say knit purl. I think it said something else. Oh, it said yarn over. But again, it had the balls of yarn and some knitting needles on it.
So what's the third one going to say?
Oh, if I could, I'd do knit purl again. I can just see that bag in my mind. I love that thing. And I do carry some of my bags once in a while. I actually carried that bag once. I put my laptop in it and took it on a plane trip.
Well, let's face it, it's obvious advertising in a sense, isn't it? Because somebody can say, oh, I like that bag. Where'd you get it from? Well, actually, I made it.
Yeah, and nobody's ever bought one in that moment when I said I've made it, but I have handed out business cards when people say, where'd you get that bag?
It's the way to advertise, girl. Yes. Well done. So with all the materials that you use, out of all the materials that you use, which is the main material that you would regard as your favorite to work with, whether that be I mean, if we're talking your bags, is that something that you embroider with? Is that something that you knit them with? Is it something you line them with, etc.?
The bags have to be knit from at least 75% wool. The yarn has to be at least 75% wool for it to felt. So I prefer to use 100% wool, and I generally use off the shelf something like Patons 100%. I think it's called Patons Classic Wool. It's inexpensive. It works up nicely. Sometimes I do buy some more high dollar, fancier yarns, and they do produce fancier projects. They might have a different sheen. And then, so that was my first favorite. What my favorite would be today is pallet yarn. And I have some here to show you if you wanted to see it. But pallet yarn is also on 100% yarn, but it's fingering weight. It's not worsted weight. So I'm able to hold, so usually in the bags, you hold 2 strands of yarn together. Well, this produces a pretty heavyweight bag, which is fine. Absolutely fine. But to be a little bit more artistic, I wanted to make lighter weight, smaller bags. And to attract, different customers, you want to make different things. So this lightweight pallet yarn, I'm able to hold 2 strands of 2 different colors together to make a blended, to make a color, to blend these 2 yarns, knit them together, and then when they felt, it appears to be a beautiful blended color. I don't know if I have anything here to show you that.
An example. Go on, find something. Look around, look behind you. There's got to be one there somewhere.
I don't have one, but I did show some on the ones that I showed have not even been felted yet. So working with the pallet yarn and holding the 2 strands together is relatively new for me. I've been doing it with the 1 strand, the pallet yarn. And then I started doing the 2 strands.
But are you happy with the 2 strand? You're saying it's a new thing. Are you happy doing it that way?
I wish I had it right here to show you. I'm thrilled with the effect. Now I do have, this one is that blended technique, but it's with worsted yarn. So the same technique works with worsted yarn, holding the two strands of different colors together to create a new color. That does work, but I like the lightweight of the palette yarn. And
Now
as you know, or you may not know if you've never worked with palette yarn, the reason they call it palette is it comes so many colors, where the classic wool, I just mentioned the name and it'll come back to me, but the classic wool is Patents classic wool has very limited colors. You know, you can't get kumquat, which you can in palette.
That's an interesting colour.
Yes, would you like to see kumquat?
I would like to. Let's see what kumquat is. Wow, that's really bright.
Yes, it looks like a kumquat, doesn't it?
I have to pass on that one because I've got no clue what a kumquat is. I just know it's edible.
And I happen to love kumquats. I love just about anything sour and citrus.
Oh, sounds like my kind of thing then.
So this, I'm very guilty of not keeping the yarn balls, or yarn bands, but I'm pretty darn good at remembering what it is. So I have no yarn band, but I'm positive that's kumquat. What else could that
be? Very, very bright.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So I'm going to use that with some other colors to make butterflies on a bag.
Oh.
That's why I have kumquat here.
Well, the bag you've just touched behind you, you may as well grab it if you can. It's
going to be hard to get those down, so I have a little pile right here.
Well, grab one. Show us. I was keen on seeing the little sheepy. I was sure it's a little sheep.
It is a little sheep, and it was hard to decide which ones to hang up to be a backdrop and which ones to show you up close.
Oh, sorry. Just to be awkward.
I have a tote over here with 40 more in it, so don't tempt me to get the tote. I can get the tote.
Just show us one for now. Let's have a look at a typical design.
I'll do that. This is quite typical. So it's a pretty large bag, but this is representative of how my techniques began. So this is knitted by hand from wool. And then I embroidered on it with wool. And then I hot water felted it in my kitchen sink. And by hot water felting, I mean agitating it by hand in hot soapy water for anywhere from 30 minutes to a couple of hours. And of course, not a couple of hours continuous. I can't do it for that long, but a few minutes here and a few minutes there.
Yeah.
So it's completely shrunk and it's become a piece of fabric.
Am I allowed to be, this is a typical me thing to do. Can you hold it really close to the camera so we can see the detailing on it? Look at that. Oh, I want to stroke it.
Well, they're very touchable. When people come into my booth to shop, I say the bags love to be touched. Please touch them.
Love it. Very nice. Thank you very much for giving us
this plush. And see how thick and heavy this is. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but this is a pretty heavy and thick
fabric.
Nice and thick.
Yeah.
Whereas something made with palette yarn is going to be this much, much thinner fabric. Let me get it here where you can see it better. This much thinner fabric. And this is a needle felted bag. This is yet a different technique.
I quite like that little, I'm not a bag person, but I kind of like that little that you can actually have over your shoulder and kind of wear with almost anything. I like it.
And many of them have an adjustable strap so that it can actually be that crossbody bag.
Woman of many talents in here. Well done. Right, my darling, you put it down, otherwise I'm going to get absorbed with these. Let's get on with these questions, shall we? We will come back to them. Promise. Okay.
Don't get me started.
I already did, by the looks of it.
Yes.
When it came to, you can answer this for either or. What was your biggest failure with your bag making, or what was your biggest failure with starting YouTube?
My biggest failure with bag making was I've mentioned that I have a knitting machine, and I'll go into more detail about that some other time, unless you want me to talk about it today. But anyway, I made the first few things I made on the machine, were just practice. Make a rectangle and sew the sides together and make it into a bag. The first thing I think I made on the machine was a giant rug, just to get the idea of how to operate the machine. Anyway, made this bag, and as I was hot water felting it, as I just described, in hot soapy water in my kitchen sink, I'd never had this experience before. It actually felted to itself. So the bag didn't have an opening. It felted to itself.
Oops.
And I had never had that happen before. But I realized after it, and it didn't do it completely, but it did it enough that there was no saving it. It was not salvageable. I couldn't pull it apart. It was felted to itself. But what I realized is, because it was knit on the machine, it was different from what I had knit by hand. Those machine stitches are more uniform, more likely to stick together. And I didn't know that until I had that experience. And then I had another one that almost did that, started to do that, and I was able to catch it as it happened and keep it from securing itself to itself. Just put my hand inside of it. So I learned that if it's a machine knit bag, I have to put my hand inside of it as I'm felting it. I can't just take the outside of it and agitate. I have to turn it inside out, turn it right side out, back and forth, to keep it.
I think the good thing for anybody, whether you're a crafter or not, that if you don't make a mistake, you can't learn. And learning is a wonderful thing to do, unless there's too many mistakes, and then you just give up and walk out the door.
I love learning. It is probably my favorite thing to do. It feels like, especially if I'm learning something about crafting, about knitting or crochet or making something, it feels like the hours pass in the most pleasant way. It's not like, where did the day go? I didn't get anything done. It's like, where did the day go? I spent it in the most wonderful way.
That's good. Knowledge is a powerful tool. It doesn't matter who or what you are. But anyway, in that case, I may as well jump straight to, what are your other interests besides YouTube and bag making?
I love to read. I've read. I remember wanting to learn to read. So I feel like I've always read. As soon as they taught me, darn it, I was reading. I remember being really frustrated when I was very small at not being able to read. And I love to read. And mainly I read literary novels, fiction. But I read nonfiction. When I was a student, when I was in college, I loved to read whatever they assigned, which fortunately makes you out to be a pretty good student. That is probably my main interest, other than knitting and crocheting. I have a dog and a cat, and I have a beautiful daughter, which of course are all very high on my interest list. I'm involved in my church. I just recently moved to a much nicer home than where I lived before, so that's a big interest for me right now. Can't really afford to do a lot with it, but it's much nicer, and it's making me very happy.
Good. You've got to think of it as slowly, but a house can become a home in time, and it's all about what's inside, not what's on the walls or on the. Okay, carpet can help in some places, but it's not necessarily what's on the floor either. But you'll get there, girl. You'll get there.
And that's why the wall is blank, because I haven't been here long enough to think about what I want to do. I'm just really glad to be here. And I decided that was enough for the time being.
It's enough for the time being, and it's enough for us just to see you. It doesn't matter whether there's a blank wall or not. It's fine. So you've said about your biggest failure so far. Let's jump to your biggest success. Now, would that be the bag that you sold for an extortionate amount, or would it be something else?
The bag for the extortionate amount is up there. But really, like I said, Lady Bird, when I went to that festival, and I think it was in 2008 that I first went to that festival and said, I'm going to sell here one day. And then it was 6 years later, but I am now in that festival as part of my membership to the guild that I belong to. I'm automatically in that festival if I make something.
Yay.
So although I have to submit my work and the jury looks at it, if I want to be in that festival, and we will have it next year, I will be allowed to be in there. And that's just, I had that one goal and I've met it. And so like my next goals are, I would like to sell enough bags that when I'm retired and I don't have an income, I can pay my electric bill with my bags. I would like, ideally, I live near Atlanta. Some rich ladies from Atlanta would learn about my bags and want to pay really big money for them. You know, that would be my next goal.
Well, they're unique and one of a kind. I mean, why wouldn't somebody want to pay a little bit extra not to have something off the shelf?
Exactly. And do you mind if I comment to that? I had a friend that you asked me about pricing. So this speaks to pricing and that question. I have a good friend who I was talking to him about pricing. And I said, I have a hard time charging such and such for this such and such item. And he said, people want the experience of buying something special.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have to pay more for it, it's even more special. How brilliant is that? And simple. People, and I want the experience of buying something special. I don't mind paying for it, more for it. If it's exactly what I want, it's exactly the moment that I want it, I'll pay for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Very well said, that man.
Yeah, he's a good friend.
I think you should give him a pat on the back when you're able.
I do. Yes, he's. You know, he's one of those friends that he's kind of in my bubble. Like neither he nor I really see other people, so we do spend a little bit of time together during this time.
Good. At least there's somebody there, a supportive shoulder. They can give you a pat on the back, urge you on, and we're here for the rest of it.
I so appreciate, I appreciate this community. I won't go long about that because everybody knows how I feel about this community. And if you don't know, go watch my videos and you'll find out.
Well plugged. Well plugged.
How about that?
So apart from going to see that, why else should we subscribe to you?
Wow. There's the tough question. Well, I do think I have interesting content. I do think that my work is unusual. I doubt that it's unique, but I think that it is very unusual for the artistic circle I move in. Nobody else that I know of has done what I do, partly because I'm somewhat self-taught, so I don't do it right. And so, okay, there we go. You made me say why I'm doing this. When I had this experience in 2013 of beginning to design bags, took me completely by surprise. And it was so satisfying. I want other people to know that can happen to them. That you can just be sitting there one day thinking you're going to knit a bag from a pattern and think, well, I know stitch count well enough to put a bag together without looking at a pattern. I know the shape of a bag. I have an idea that I could embroider on it. Maybe I'll do that. And it turned out to be a thing. And I want other people to have that experience of going, I think I'll make a doodle. And it's a drawing and it's a piece of art. And it doesn't matter if other people feel that. You feel it? It is.
That's it. And there's always bound to be some people that are really not keen, and there are other people that are going to go, wow. So you've got both sides of the coin, and if you can inspire somebody, amazing. Amazing.
And other people have inspired me too. And so if I can give back a little bit of that, that would be fantastic.
And that, dear people, was in a very recent video from our Beverly, who is hoping to help inspire a young girl and has helped her out. But I won't go into the ifs, the whys, the whats, because you're going to go and have to watch. Right, okay, we're just over halfway through. Don't worry, I've stopped the stopwatch just for a moment, just to let people know in the chat, whoever is here, any questions that you would like asked to Beverly at the end, chuck them in the chat. They will be asked, I can promise you. And anybody who says hello, sends a compliment, when we are finished in the broadcasting for you guys, I'll be speaking to Beverly privately and we'll go over those so she will actually hear them. So don't worry, you're not being ignored. You are seen, and Beverly will know about it as well at the end. Okay. Let's carry on, shall we?
Carry on. Carry on.
Can you give an example of when you thought outside of the box or outside of the bag, if you will?
Well, that kind of leads to some things that I don't know that I would call them failures, but they weren't complete successes. I tried to make some tapestries.
Ooh.
Instead of doing this work on a bag, I tried to do it on some flat felt. And my artisticness, my artistry, sorry.
It's all right, you can use whatever word you like. You're in the spotlight.
My ability to be artistic didn't translate very well to these tapestries. Plus, then I was flummoxed about how to hang them. Like a bag, it's a bag. You don't have to figure out what to do with it after you made it. It's a bag. It's self-contained. But to have made a tapestry, I didn't know how to back it. I didn't know how to hang it. I didn't know how to apply a pole to it. And I know there's ways to do these things, and I just couldn't wrap my mind around how to do it. So
you tried and you learned.
Yeah. Oh, I learned so much. Oh my gosh, I learned so much. And I'm sorry, Lady Bird, I kind of forgot the question.
It's all right. It's okay. You
but
can
I might have answered it anyway.
It's okay. I mean, you can always go, oh, hang on a second. Oh, you asked me about 10 questions ago about such and that's fine. If you want to pass on anything, you pass. This is all about you. All right.
Did I answer your question?
You did. You did. So thank you. Do you end up doing research for different trends or different materials to be used or different techniques?
Not very much. More a little bit recently, because like I said a few minutes ago that I'm pretty self-taught, and I kind of did that in isolation stubbornly. I don't know why I do that, because when I do some research and I reach out and I make connections in the community, I learn so much and I enjoy it so much. So I'm trying to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have a lot of trust in my own artistic ability.
Good girl. I like that. That shows confidence. So well done you.
Well, I have some, like I said, some really supportive friends, and some of them are artists, and some of my experience involves them trying to get me to do certain things outside of my comfort zone. Well, and not even out of my comfort zone, because I don't mind getting out of my comfort zone, but to do things that I didn't necessarily want to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not very good at that. So I actually just bowed out of a collaboration recently because I don't know what to do with these flat quilt squares that they've given me. They want me to apply felt to them or something. They don't want me to make a quilt out of it. They want me to make it 3D, and I don't know what to do.
At least you're willing and able to admit, rather than just flunk it off or dismiss completely or on the front. You're able to, okay, I would say stand up, but you are sitting, stand up and admit, which is a very noble thing to do.
Well, it was hard because they're good artistic friends. But so I'm sorry, I kind of got off track. But when other people try to guide me, I try to listen, because I do want, I take constructive criticism very well. I want to know if my art is not hitting the note. But when people try to tell me exactly what to make, I usually can't do it. I have to be inspired to do it.
That's a very artsy thing to say. I like it. You need to have that mojo and that oomph to put something together. You can't just be told exactly how, because you wouldn't be feeling it, and then it wouldn't be you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that, and I'm not artsy at all, but I understand it.
I think you're artsy and you don't know it.
Well, me and art, no, not really. But anyway, it's not about me. Next question. What advice would you give to someone that is just starting out with the felting? We'll stick with felting for the moment. What would you give them as advice if they're just starting out and they came to you?
Sure. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do felting, and I do a couple of different things myself, but you will find, even though I can describe how I felt, you will find many other methods out there, and lots of advice. The way I do it is I knit a bag and immerse it. So if you wanted to do it, follow my advice, I would make a small pouch. You could even make a knitted rectangle, fold it in half, seam it, drawstring that top, and you have a little pouch that you can felt. Now, you can expect that this item that you've knit will shrink at least half this way. So if you knit it to be this big, you felt it's going to be this big. You're going to lose about a third in width. Wow,
that's a lot of shrink.
When I started out, I didn't get this calculation right, and I can't tell you how many little short stubby bags I made. It has to be, you have to make it long enough so that when it shrinks halfway, you still have a pouch. And I've made these little pouches like if you keep little crystals or little mementos that are important to you, and you need a little pouch to put them in. In fact, you can even use these pouches for yarn needles and things like that, because it's made of felt, and you can put the needles in it if you want to. But that would be a place to start, is to make something small and see how it goes, because there's nothing like experience. There's nothing like doing it with your own hands. Now, you want the wire to be hot enough to work, but not to burn your hands. Use rubber gloves if you need to. And don't use Dawn or some kind of soap like that. Use an olive oil or Castile based soap, and you can usually get Castile soap at the Dollar Tree in a bar. It's not
cheap. I like that.
But you don't want to use like Tide or Dawn. Those are detergents. You want to use a soap. And I like to use natural scented soap. I don't know how I got started doing that. I think I had a bar one day, and that's all I had. And so I felted with it. And when I go to craft festivals, I buy little soaps and I use them to felt with. And that's not how you're supposed to do it.
We all find our own ways of doing things. And if it works for us, then that's the advice that we can give. I've tried many different things, but this is what I found works for me. You can give it a go. Maybe you'll find your own way. We've all got our own little niggly things to do our way.
I have a million of those. Don't get me started.
Oh, we haven't got time for a million, Beverly. We haven't got time for a million. Have you ever just given up on the bag making and said, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. It's just too much. And then you've gone away and then come back at a later date?
Gosh, if I did, Lady Bird, it might have been for 30 seconds.
That's a long time.
I don't think I can leave my bag. Like I said, before I even did this, I was making bags for a long time. And ladies you always need bags. Always need bags.
Always need bags.
Yes. And I remembered that I do have a bag here with blended yarn within my reach. If you want to
Go for it. Go for it. Go on.
It's my personal pocketbook, is why I didn't think of it.
Oh.
This is one of the very first bags I ever made. And you can see by using more than one yarn held together, I'm able to create this blending effect.
Rainbow.
So you got two here, and then you carry one and change it, and then you carry the one and change it, and just.
Again, I just want to stroke it. I want to go. Oh,
and this is, like I said, this is one of the first bags that I ever made.
And it's still going strong. There we go. Quality, people. Quality.
Scraps hold up. And I didn't know that when I made it, that all these years later I would say, look at this bag, I still carry it. And there are times when I put this bag away and I quit carrying it, and I'll carry another bag for a little while, and it just doesn't make me, it just doesn't satisfy me. My stuff doesn't fit in it right, it doesn't feel right, and I get my old bag out.
Well, where else are you going to put your kitchen sink?
That's right. So I had to take all my stuff out of it before I showed it to
you. So you basically said you've been doing it for a long time. So you've got into your own little ways, but what has changed, if anything, from when you first began making to, say, if you were to do one today?
The example that I showed you, this green bag with the embroidery on it, like I said, that's pretty classic. That's pretty how I started out. This is where I'm hoping to get to. This is for me, a challenge to improve my quality, because what I've done here is, instead of embroidering or making a line drawing with yarn, I have used roving and blended it, finger blended the fibers, and then needle felted them on this to get this more artistic and blended effect.
Oh, I do like that. I'm glad you put it up close. Thank you. I'm so for everyone shoving everything at the camera. I've got nothing against faces. I just like seeing things up close.
Me too, and I figured out that that's the only way my viewers can see it well, is just get it up there.
Just why not? We're not here to see you, Beverly. We want to see your work.
That's exactly right. And I have another piece that is even more, I think, more quality than this, more artistic, but it's in an art show, so I don't have it here to show it to you.
Oh, you should.
I do show it.
You have nothing better, Beverly. That was your best. That's it.
So I do show it in one of my in one of my videos. I do show it, and it's
there you go. See, that's a plug to what, the third video now we've done a plug to.
Yeah. So I do show it in it, maybe even in the first video, because I knew I was going to take it to enter it.
Okay.
And that again is a benefit of the guild that I belong to, that there is this art show that I can just submit something to, and I doubt that I will pull any prize, but I might sell that bag for an exorbitant price because I marked it up.
But you're worth it. You cannot put a price on you or a talent.
Yes.
In that, or you could, but
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Go for it. Go for it. Go on now.
I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I have worked really hard to get here, and it feels so good to create these things. And I don't know how it happens or where it comes from. And that makes it all the more pleasurable and makes me all the more pleased with it. And like I said, I don't mean to be arrogant whatsoever. A lot of this is just patience and stubbornness. You keep making it until I get it the way I want it.
Like I said before, Beverly, you be arrogant, you be shy, you be all up in your face. This is your time. You be you. You be whatever you want to be, girl.
It's kind of like a job interview. I've mentioned that I'm a bookkeeper and accountant, and so I've been on many job interviews in my life. Not that I've had a hard time getting a job, but I've been on many interviews in my life. I'm fortunate to have had good jobs in my career. But I became accustomed to telling people that I'm a really good bookkeeper. I am really good at this. I know what I'm doing. And I begin to feel that way about my art, that when I trust my
it's
instinct.
one thing saying it though, Beverly, believe it. And I'm pretty sure you're there with that.
I'm getting there. I remember the first time I referred to myself as an artist. And that, you know, when you say it and you hear it, that feels pretty good. And you agree with it. You say it, hear it, and go, yeah.
You got to say it to yourself every day. Every day.
Well, I kind of have it all around. Like I actually do have my bin of work right here to the side of me because I had been to a show. I have all of my work right here in my living room.
Just nothing to hand when you ask for it. That's all. Anyway.
I should have brought the bin over here, but I was afraid I'd just start.
It's fine. It's fine.
I do have a couple more if you wanted to see more.
Bear with it. Bear with it, girl. Bear with it. Hang in there, girl.
Okay, not trying to change your schedule. Just
it's fine. I mean, it is all about you to a degree. All right, just hang on. Okay, so this can be yarny, it can be music, it can be political, whatever it is. What is your favorite number one YouTube channel that you always go to no matter what?
I'm going to name two, a small one and a larger one. Okay?
No, one.
Okay, I'll pick one. Setta's Place.
Oh, Setta's Place will be in the description below after a little while of getting this video out there. So if anybody else wants to go and have a nosy at Setta's Place after subscribing to Dipminitary, please do so. Why Setta?
Well, and the running for that first place that is so close. There are milliseconds between.
No, don't go mentioning the other one. You've mentioned one.
I won't mention them. Why Setta's Place? You know, how can I go on? Her voice, the things she makes, the how her things look on her. Like when I make crochet garments, they don't look like that. And her hats and her hair wraps and her tea, the way she conducts herself. The most recent video that I watched of Setta, she was getting on an airplane. Well, no, it wasn't the most recent one. Several days ago, because I've watched several since then. She got on a plane to go see her son. And she got on the plane without telling us where she was going. And she had the most joyful look on her face getting on that plane. I said to myself, she's going to see a loved one. I can tell by the look on her face. She's going to see a loved one. That's the kind of face she has. And the kind of voice she has.
Makes you feel all warm and gooey.
Well, she has a lot of videos too, and I haven't seen them all. Some of the other ones, I've seen all of them. But Setta's Place, I still have a store. So when I need a day of peace and a voice in the background and to see her beautiful work, that's where I go.
We've got time for two more questions before we take it over to the people in the chat. So two more from me, and then anybody in the chat that has a question, you go for it.
Okay.
Two more from me, and then we'll head on over. So then she can relax and be like, oh, I didn't get the job. Thank goodness for that.
I don't want to. I have a job. I have some jobs. I don't need more jobs.
See, there you go. She didn't even want it in the first place. You've just moved, so I guess this is kind of more of a thinky thing for you than ever right now. But if you had a craft room, if you have a craft room,
I do,
and you could get a makeover done completely free of charge, anything you wanted in there, what would it look like? What would be the necessities in there?
The first thing that I would do, because I have a fair setup. I don't have it set up yet, but I have a pretty fair setup that I had where I lived before. And I'll set it up again. That way I have some shelving and a a nice work table for my knitting machine. The thing I would really like to have is a fancier knitting machine. I have a hobby level plastic bed knitting machine, an LK 150, Silver Reed LK 150. I'd like to upgrade to a metal body bed knitting machine. It would handle those heavyweight yarns better. And not that I want to use all heavyweight yarns, but I would like to be able to use any weight that I want on the machine. The whole reason for the machine is to save my hands, which have begun to become sore. And that has worked.
So as we're coming up to Christmas, anybody that's watching the replay of this or in the chat right now, if anybody wants to get our Beverly a little Christmas gift, you know what to get now.
Yes, for bulky weight, please.
There you go. Specifics. I mean, if she wants a certain colour, well, you're going to have to ask her. But, you know, she can always spray paint it.
Yeah, it could be shiny, just shiny, silvery.
She's a magpie. The last question that I will give you is, what can we expect to see from you in your future videos?
I have been planning the next couple of videos, and one of the questions I have is what my viewers would like to see, but I do have a list right here of what I plan for the future. I'm going to talk about a nostopine, and if nobody knows what that is, well, you'll just have to tune in, and we'll show you. I don't have one, but
sing another plug for the 4th video.
A nostopine. And I have something that I use in place of it that most of you have, so you can do this. I want to talk about, I'm trying to learn to draw to help me lay out the projects that I do. Really helps if I can make a to scale illustration of what I want to needle felt on a bag or embroider or embroider on a bag. It helps to be able to lay that out. I want to show, I have a pretty fair collection of knit and crochet and count and cross stitch pattern books and magazines, some of them vintage. Like I have ones that belong to my mom and my aunt, and old, really cool crochet basket magazines, pattern books. I want to share those things. I want to share my tools. I'd like to tell my fiber story and talk more about my aunt and my mom, and specifically how I learned to do things and how I got started.
Yes.
And then I was going to ask my viewers if they think that I should continue weekly or if I should go to every other week. I do plan to get some editing software. I would like to, if nothing else, I would like to be able to add still photos. So when I talk about work, that I can show that, or that I can splice in videos. Like if I can make a video of my craft room, I'd like to be able to splice that in and share that. So I do have some plans.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Miss Bev. I will put it over to the chat now, so you can wipe your brow and think, thank goodness it's over. Well, from me it is. You'll be glad to know.
Okay.
So thank you very much for answering my questions. Now, there haven't been any particular questions so far in the chat, but guys, I will give you 2 minutes to throw anything out there if you'd like to know anything about Dipminitory. Stick the question in the chat now. If I don't see anything within 2 minutes, we will close this down. But if I do, it's going to get asked. And there's up to 15 minutes to answer more questions before Bev melts in the chair or desperately needs to get another drink. So if you've got any questions, let us know now. And I do want to see that sheep. I really, really do.
Do you want me to get up and get it for you?
Please, I really want to see it.
I will. I don't think I'll bump anything. You might
would-
see my jeans.
That's all right. It's better seeing jeans than no jeans.
Well, I did actually have on just my long
Oh,
underwear, so I'm glad I decided to
so
put on
much bigger
jeans.
than I was expecting. I thought it was only like about 6 foot, maybe. That's huge. Oh, look, she's bringing a second one over. She's like, no, I've started, so I'm going to finish.
Okay.
2 minutes, the pressure. Oh, and we do have a question when you've shown.
Okay. So this, again, is pretty traditional for me. Something I've done a lot of, which is hand knit the bag and then embroider with wool. And I will tell you, embroidering with wool on wool is one of the joys of life. I just love the feeling of poking my needle in and out of this knitted fabric. So it's knitted, it's not felted yet when I'm embroidering it. So it's this huge knitted wool fabric and I embroider on it.
See, I'd be so tempted myself. If that were my bag, me personally, I would just felt the sheep. So the sheep is all fluffy, but the rest of the bag is a bag.
I actually made one like that one time. The sheep was 3D and stood up like this from the bag. It was a project bag, and I gave it to someone who helped me, and I gave it to her for her birthday, and I named it. I name all my bags, and because the sheep was all puffed up like that, I called the bag Puff. So it was Puff the Sheep for a project bag.
I love it. And you picked up another one. You
made making that till you said that. I have made so many bags. I'm gonna have to count.
That's good that you've got so many different ideas. It's great. You grabbed a red one as well. You may as well put that in front of the camera as well while you're at it. Because there are some questions coming in. So
okay. This is one of those things that I spent a lot of time making elaborate plans to make a little bag with a tree on it, and then it turned out not to be elaborate at all. But I'm very happy with it. When I got to this point, I was going to add some ornaments and presents and stuff like that. But when I got to this point, I'm like, if I touch that, I could mess it up.
Yeah. Sometimes with a lot of things, the simpler the better. And I've got to say, I kind of like that. Oh, look, funky. Ooh.
And it's got a nice long handle, so it's this small bag that you put your cell phone and a couple other things in there.
I like it.
And wouldn't that look nice with your ugly Christmas sweater or your pretty Christmas sweater?
Love it. Okay, my darling. We'll go to the very first question, which comes from Barbara Riggle Baker. And she says, does the colour cause you to decide what to make on the bag?
Yes. Yes. Good example here that when I made this bag, I just knew it needed gold on it. That for some reason, this bluish yarn, and I won't be able to get this one off. It's all tangled on there. But this bluish yarn said to me, put something gold on this bag.
Oh, I like that one.
And I don't know how I got that message, why gold goes on that bag. But it sure works. So yes, color is definitely an influence.
Oh, I like that. By the way, anybody in the chat that is having their question answered now, if it doesn't quite answer your question, by all means, let us know in the comments and we will reword things or rework it. We do have a little bit of time.
And I tend to ramble and not directly answer the question.
She does. She rambles so much and interrupts me constantly. I mean, anyone would think this is her time. It's fine.
Make me have a goofy grin again.
Affordably Crafty has asked, how old is your oldest vintage pattern book and what is it?
I have things that belonged to my mom, so I'm sure at least back to the 70s, at least. I may have things older than that because I got my mom's and my aunt's things. And I haven't looked at them for a long time, but I didn't get rid of any of that stuff because I kind of lost interest in crochet for a while. I'm totally back, but I kept all that stuff, those piles and piles, because most of my vintage stuff is crochet. Really don't have much knit vintage.
It sounds like you need to go and have a little rummage at some point.
I will, and that's part of setting up my craft room. Is I will get all those things out and go through them and sort them, and I will make some piles for us to go through and look at. Yeah. Yes, I'm looking forward to that. And Kim Affordably Crafty had that Piecework magazine. I just have to get my hands on a copy of that. If Kim, you could let me know what edition that is. I have to find that.
There we go, Kim. And if you do know, Kim, and you want to put in the comments, I will let Bev know at the end. Beverly, we have answered this one, but just to clarify again, and to help with the extra little added bonus on here, Johnny Hibbert has asked, how do we order some of those bags, and are they all one-offs?
They are all one-offs. There are no duplicates. Now, market bags, crochet market bags, which we have not touched on today, can be duplicated. Some can be duplicated, but none of these other bags can be duplicated. And to purchase, you can go to Etsy, or you can go to any of my videos, and there you will find my email. And you can email me directly if you see something that you like, especially if you're local. You know, get in touch with me, Johnny Hibbert.
I have a feeling there's a pat on the back coming.
Yeah. He already got one this video. I don't think he knows. I don't think he was watching when I called him out earlier. He'll know who he was.
See, I guessed right.
Yeah.
David Browning, very much like the idea of the sheep where you only felted the sheep. He was quite keen on that idea and has asked, have you done a puppy bag like that sheep bag?
A what bag?
A puppy.
Puppy? A dog?
Yeah.
No, I find it a little bit difficult to depict animals so far, other than the sheep, because I've done a lot of sheep. I've done a few dogs, but that's a good idea, David. Oh, I like that idea.
I'm thinking David would actually really like one, because he said right underneath, and normally I'd leave this to the end, but he said, I'm broker than broke, but I'd find a way to pay for that.
Well, we can talk, and, you know, I take deposits, I take layaway, and, you know, I talked about in another video, and I touched on it here, that sometimes people's ideas inspire me and sometimes they don't. And I'll tell you what, David, that idea inspired me. Yes. And at first, like, it took a minute to roll around in my head, and then I started to see it, and I went, "Oh yeah."
Write it down quick before you forget it. Write it down.
I have a 14-year-old dog that's my heart, and if you watch my videos, you'll see him too.
See, other plug. She's plugging well tonight. Good girl. Next question is from Distinctive Crochet. And she has asked, how did you find out about felting?
Many, and like I said, there's many different methods. But what struck me and what I began with is many, many, many years ago, my auntie, that I've already referred to as somebody that's helped me learn, she and I were watching Vicki Howell on Nitty Gritty. And they knitted a bag, and they embroidered some kind of Celtic sign on it, and they felted it. And it was years later before I did it, but that stuck in my mind. And I even own the book that came out. I own a Nitty Gritty book with that very pattern in it. But that's how the felted bag idea started. I had been making crochet bags before that.
Thank you very much. Next question comes from Jennifer Huckabee. Bev, well, she's getting a bit personal here. Bev, the bags behind you, or at least I mean, what? We've got one left. She's grabbed them all. The bags behind you are gorgeous. Can you please explain the bag making process?
Yes, and I'll go through it pretty quickly. I've not mentioned this on my any of my videos or recently, but I actually have a blog. It's not active right now. It's going to be active in the future. But one of my previous posts that is still available details the process of creating a bag. And in fact, it's this bag right here that details the process. And it's several sections of a blog post. Like, it's not just one blog post. There's several steps. But mainly, I knit the bag from wool. Has to be at least 75% wool for it to felt successfully. It cannot be superwash. Cannot be superwash wool. Has to be natural wool. Commercial wool, like I said, Patent Classics wool works great. And I also like pallet yarn and from Knit Picks and Andy's yarn from Knit Picks. All work great for this process. But any 100% wool yarn will work. Knit your bag. And, I won't go into the process of how you shape the bag right here, but I'll be glad to go into that some other time if people are interested. They usually start at the bottom, but not always. So I knit the whole thing. And as I said before, you're going to experience a great deal of shrinkage. So this bag was probably this long when I began to felt it. Wow. And this wide was a large knitted piece. And then this is needle felting after the hot water felting process. And this may be my first needle felting. This bag has been around for a few years, and it's laying here because it actually sold, and it's going to go to its new owner soon. This is one of my favorite bags. It is, yes, priced not to sell, and so someone bought it, and I'm happy to let it go.
Let it go. It can go. It's fine.
Yes, and I have the experience of I recently sold a bag and said it's this and so price, and she said, "Okay, well, I'll give you $15 more for it."
Lovely. Yes, please. Thank you.
Isn't that crazy? And then she said, "I'd like another one, something like it," and I said, "I can do that."
You keep it going because people are loving it. Affordably Crafty has jumped in with another question and also got a little bit personal. Bev, do you dye your own wool?
I have never dyed. I don't think I have ever dyed anything. Maybe my hands by accident with some turmeric powder. That's all I can think of. No, I don't dye.
Take over the chat just for a moment because my TV just decided to go. So bear with me while it boots itself back up again.
Okay. Are you okay? Can people hear and see me?
Oh, people can see you. It's all right. It's all my end. I stupidly pressed. Oh, there we go. You're back. I stupidly pressed the power button instead of the turn up button. So I apologize.
And don't we do that at the most inopportune time? Touch the wrong button.
Me and my fat fingers. Okay. So next question. Did we? Oh, yes, you did, because you said you've never done it, just your hands, possibly. There's another one from Miss Affordably Crafty. Bev, it's the current edition when it comes to the vintage.
Okay, is that winter?
They also have a lovely website with the podcasts. I should have said that at the end, but
Okay, thank you, Kim. I will look for it. I appreciate you showing that to us. I love things like that.
Right, are there any others? I'm just having a quick nosy down the chat because we are at time out at the moment, but I'm just very quickly running through just to make sure. And she also says, this is still from Kim, that Piecework magazine has a felted hat project in it as well.
Ooh, I've made a couple of hats. Oh. Yeah. One of my first felted projects was a hat. It's been a long time ago. I gave it to somebody. It was a cloche, had a little flower on the side of it.
Aww. Oh, okay. Deep in the heart of Texas Fibers has asked, Bev, can you felt crochet?
Yes, you can, and I have done so. It works, but because of the nature, the textured nature of crochet, it doesn't always look as nice as a felted piece, as a knitted piece. Sorry, because the knitted fabric is more smooth usually than the crochet fabric. I made some small bags from just double crochet and felted them, and I didn't like the effect. It just didn't seem to lend anything to it. So I'm still working on that. I did make a crocheted bag from a pattern that a long time ago when I was making bags from patterns. I made a crochet bag that I felted, and it was successful. So yes, the short answer would be yes.
That's fine. Like I said, you give as much detail as you feel necessary. It's fine. Affordably crafty.
Thank you, Kim.
Bev, have you felted Hobby Lobby? I love this wool.
I may have. I don't remember, but if it's not superwash, it will felt. And I don't think I have. I don't think I have. Because I have more experience with the Patton's Classic Yarn, Classic Wool. I've used that quite a lot. And I will wait for it to be on sale and stock up the colors I need. And I also have been so blessed and fortunate to have people actually give me their wool yarn.
Mm.
Yes.
It's always nice when you get given something. It helps a ton.
Yes. I had a friend that owned a yarn shop, and years after she closed, she cleaned out her basement one day and brought me Patton's wool yarn and yarn and more yarn. And this bag came from that batch, I'm sure.
Oh, texture. I like it.
And I'm pretty sure this is, just the Patton's Classic wool like I would usually use. Or it may have been Ella Rae wool.
Very nice. Could you please clarify for Nancy's Hooked on Crochet, who has asked, did you say you do the embroidering before or after felting?
Either. Now, I've only done embroidery after a couple of times. And let me clarify that this is needle felting. This is not embroidery. So a lot of what you see is needle felting. But you can embroider before or after. After, it's more difficult because you have a much more solid fabric. Before, it's much more easy to embroider because you have those loose open knit stitches. When you knit something you're going to felt, you want to have your stitches be loose. So you have these nice loose knit stitches that you can make. I do a lot of cross stitch on the knitted stitches with wool yarn. So either way, but I suggest before because the after is harder on my hands. Something I'm moving toward, which is another reason I'm trying to make more lightweight bags so that they're easier to embroider on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I hope that makes sense.
If it doesn't, if she says in the comments, we'll let you know. I'll let you know. There's no we. I don't think the cat's going to be asking you questions. She's also asked, and I think this may be a case of you'll have to check her channel out. Nancy has also asked, how do you make a hat and make it fit?
I would say experimentation, because I've made the first and get a pattern. Buy a book that talks about felted hats, or there's many resources. But I have made a hat from pattern that worked. I just referred to a cloche that I made when I first started felting, and I was making things from patterns and felting them. Turned out great, felted well. the young lady that I made it for actually put it on her head while it was wet and shaped it to herself. And then I made another hat from a pattern, and that thing turned out to be a flat disc. That was no more a hat than my plate. So, you kind of have to experiment, because I followed that pattern. And I'm thinking the whole time, this can't turn out to be a hat. And it didn't. It didn't.
Trial and error. Affordably Craft is back and says, what if you crocheted just slip stitch? Would it have a tighter weave?
Yes, and that's what I would suggest if you're going to, like I said, I felted some double crochet. I wasn't happy with that. And I think that if you used single crochet or slip stitch, that it would work. And I want to try that. And I did mention that I had been away from crochet for a long time, and I'm back, but I've only been back for a few months. So I have not gotten to try all the crochet things I'd like to try. And that's something I'd really like to try, is to crochet and felt a bag. And thank you for reminding me. I want to do that.
I can just imagine Bev, really, if the camera were off, sitting there rubbing her hands going, whoa.
Well, because that, to expand on that a little bit, those little single crochets, I don't think it would work on slip stitch, but I think those single crochets, you could embroider on that. You could surface crochet on that or embroider on it. So you wouldn't just have the bag, you could have your embellishment as well. So far, 2 inspirations in one live.
She's off. You wait till the camera goes down and she's away.
I have missions I have to finish before Christmas. It's so frustrating.
There are 2 more questions from the chat before we have to end this. I'm sorry, guys, if you didn't get your question in. Of course, you can always go over to Dipminitory, the channel, and go and grab a video and ask in the comments, or, as Beverly has stated, she does have email if you want to ask her on a more personal level. But the last 2 questions we have in the chat, one is from P. Ottle. Have you ever made a bag and a hat to match?
No. I do have one little hat that I've made. It only fits me, so I haven't ever put it up for sale, and it kind of matches the bag. So that was the intent when I started, is to make the bag and hat to match. But I don't know if you were here earlier when I said, when you ask me to make something, it's very likely to turn out to be a bag. So even if I try to make a hat, it might be a bag.
Or a plate.
Yes. So when I make a bag, it turns out to be a bag. I like doing that.
The last question. Beverly, can you guess who the question might be from?
Without hearing the question? Oh, Kim?
Yep. Yeah. Bless her.
Thank you, Kim. Kim is one of my favorite names. I love that name.
So Affordably Crafty has asked, well done, girl. Bev, what state are you in? I don't think that's mental state. I think that means, American state.
The mental state, will be a podcast one day. But I'm in Georgia. I'm about 50 miles west of Atlanta in a small university town. Love it here. I love it. I've been here about 10 years, moved away for a couple of years and realized that this was home. So I moved back, and my daughter lives nearby, and I love it here.
Okay, so that is everything from the chat that we're going to grab now. But everything for anybody who has asked questions, and there are 2 others, I will ask them privately to Beverly in a moment, as well as going through all the compliments and the highs so that she knows. But any particular answers, I will either get back to you or Beverly will get back to you in one way or another, so it's answered. But for now, Dipminitory, Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone.
Oh, look at her face. Don't you just want to chuck her cheeks? Thank you very much for everybody who has come in through the live. If you're watching the replay, thank you very much for coming and having a nosy. Within the next hour, I will have Dipminitory Etsy down in the description. I will have Setter's Place down in the description. Beverly's Facebook down there. I'm unsure there was something else I was supposed to put down there, and I can't think.
I'm on Instagram.
Oh, the Instagram. Thank you. See, you need to do my job.
And I think everything is Dittmer Knittery. I think
that's
everywhere you can find me is Dittmer Knittery.
But thank you all very, very much. Please go and subscribe to our Beverly. And if you really fancy it, stick one down for me as well, please. But no, go and have a look at Dipminitory. Go and have a look at her crafts. And for now, Bev, stay where you are. Everybody else, thank you very much for popping in and hope to see you soon. Thank you.